Penn State fans finally saw the ball go through the hoop. In a dramatic fashion, 14-point comeback win, tied for the second longest in James Franklin's tenure at Penn State. The Nittany Lions beat USC 33-30 in overtime in an instant classic. Cory and Shawn here to break down the game as Penn State heads into a bye week. If you haven't already, please make sure to like the video and subscribe wherever you are listening or watching. We'll get right into the show. Well situated here. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Cory Lestochi. With me, as always, on a Sunday night, the great Shawn Kane. How you doing today, Shawn?
Doing good, Cory. Like I was saying off camera, just got back from Pittsburgh this afternoon. And for those of you who listened last pod, I was on a bachelor party, and the bar that I watched the game with was literally a 10-minute walk from Heinz Field. And Pitt was playing at the same exact time. So thank God Penn State won. So we were not getting heckled by Pitt fans on our way back to the Airbnb.
But we would not want that to be the case. We wouldn't want that to happen to you. Glad you had a good time. Your phone died right there at the end, but we were able to get the final couple of plays out.
Yeah, if you noticed, for people that follow along on Twitter, in overtime there are a lot more F words on the in-game tweets than usual.
I
wonder who those were from.
No idea. Might have had a couple beers during the game.
I also did. So
yeah. Did you like that one about like eat it? I think I said.
Yeah, they were. I enjoyed the tweets for sure. So thanks for taking us home with that, and taking us home just like Ryan Barker did.
Yeah, Penn State. I mean, a lot of different ways you can start this kind of game and talking about it. I think the one thing that maybe just needs to be said up front is this is not a game typically Penn State is found a way to win in the past. I mean, you have to go back pretty far to find something like this. Like I said in the intro, this is tied for the second best comeback in James Franklin's tenure at Penn State, number one being Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship. But this is just a game where you just don't expect Penn State to pull it out. They just don't usually pull these kind of games out. It's either usually a blowout win or a close, demoralizing loss. And they were able to rebound from being down 20-6 in the first half, where for a second there, you were like, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to stop USC at all. And they pretty much stopped USC the entire second half, except for one drive, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But I think the level of resilience, the ability to not get down on themselves, is a really good trait to have. And I don't know if that was a trait that we all knew existed with this specific team. So not that James Franklin teams were like quitters in previous years, but we just didn't know if this team had that level of on the road, down 14, gut check, who you going to be. And there were a lot of gut check moments in this game, especially after some interceptions. And even the defense deserves a lot of credit for how they responded. And then, of course, Drew Allar kind of epitomizes that by throwing the 2.5 interceptions. I say 2.5 because the one shouldn't count there at the end of the regulation. But how does he respond through all that adversity? He leads a 75-yard drive to tie the football game and then make sure his team gets in field goal range to win the game in overtime. Just around the clock, we were seeing people step up and make big plays when it mattered most. And I think you can take a lot away from like, oh, well, this wasn't Ohio State or this wasn't Michigan. I still think you are happy that you were able to see that from this team. knowing what else is coming up later in the year.
Yeah, for sure. Something else that happened, which was a big step, was when the offense needed the defense to step up, they stepped up. And when the defense needed the offense to step up, they stepped up. Because both units struggled at different times during the game. And in the past, when we were in a game like this, and I get USC's 3-3, but it really wouldn't shock me if they ended up 9-3. If they, depending on if they quit or not, which it remains to be seen. But they're obviously a talented football team.
Very talented.
And we have seen in the past, people kind of forget about the Ole Miss game too. Things tended to snowball with Penn State in games like this against talented teams where they go down a couple scores, and there's just not that there's no fight per se, but they just kind of let things snowball, and that was really it. Then 2 scores becomes 3 scores, and then it's almost insurmountable out on the road.
And then they always kind of like pick back, but they never really get it to where they have a chance to win it. Yeah.
They get some garbage time touchdowns, and then you're like, well, if they could still win this game if Mike Pence has the courage to do what's right, but it's really over at that point. And that didn't happen. And I think the biggest point in the game was the first interception from Drew Allar. So through the interception, our defense wasn't doing a good job at all so far that day of yesterday of stopping USC.
Right.
And first off, not giving up the pick 6. Because during the run, I was thinking he might go. Because we missed him a couple times. Liam Clifford hustled.
Shout out to Liam Clifford.
Shout out Liam Clifford. He had a few catches again. Cory needs to start putting some respect on his name. But first off, we get him. And then the defense holds them to 3. And when that happened, I definitely breathed a sigh of relief and thought, well, we're still in this. Because if you go down 21-3 instead of 17-3, that's huge. I mean, that's 3 possessions. And we never let it get to that. And then we end up kicking the field goal. They kick another field goal before halftime. And then I know for myself, I felt really good after we scored coming out of the half. And then it was a back and forth game from there. So it all really started. The momentum started to shift, in my opinion, when we held them to a field goal there.
Yeah. And they were able to hold USC to 6 total points on 2 interceptions. Again, not really counting that last one before regulation, but 2 massive holds to field goals at both points of the game. The one you're discussing, and then one where Penn State had a lot of the momentum and they threw it right back to them. We talked about that sudden change a lot, and the defense was able to hold them when it mattered most. And even right before the half, holding them a field goal right before half, they did a great job. In the second half, USC only had 1 touchdown drive, and shocker, linebacker Tyler Elsdon was on the field for that drive, which, in my opinion, you're not serious about winning the football game if Tyler Elsdon's on the field. Just to be completely transparent, there's no reason he should be
especially at that point in the game.
Right. So I don't know if maybe getting cleared for some precautionary injury, and that's why he was out there, because he, at some point in that drive, once it was kind of too late, King did come back in for Elsdon. So maybe it was like an equipment issue. Maybe it was, he's getting checked for a concussion, which that's speculation. So don't come yelling at me that I said something about a concussion. But maybe he's just getting his ankle taped. Who knows? But Elsdon was out there for far too long, and they picked him apart immediately. That was their best drive in the second half. But Shawn, I don't want to get too far down the Elsdon rabbit hole. What's up to Mudbug on YouTube? Big picture here, because we're going to have a lot of fan questions today. I think we're going to get to everything. But big picture, I mean, how do you feel about winning this game, and how much sigh of relief is it to you? I mean, are you on well, they should have won and USC is not that great? Are you on the train of this was a huge win for the program in a sense of just getting one to sink.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a small win. I think it's pretty. Anytime you get on a plane for 5 hours, and altogether it's probably about a 7-hour travel thing with the Harrisburg you need to take. You go out there, you beat a pretty good team on the road. I mean, yeah, and then you show the kind of resiliency that you have to show. I think people forget that really good teams sometimes struggle with teams that aren't all top four. Penn State fans love bringing up the Illinois game from 1994. Illinois lost 5 games that year. Like, they were not some title contender. They were good. They had a lot of talent, especially on defense. Simeon Rice. They had another guy that ended up playing in the NFL. They were good. They were a pretty good team, but we gave up 21 points within the by the time we even got off the bus. I mean, people kind of forget that and ignore context in that situation. So what I'm saying is, that type of game, the way that it was played out, it showed you something about this team. And look, I've loved to come on here today and we won by 20. Sure. But then what would we be hearing if we did that, Corey? If we went out there, won by 20,
the USC isn't a good team. Franklin should have won by more.
Yep. That's what we'd be hearing. We'd be hearing that, well, USC just isn't that good. And that's, and I don't know which, I mean, I would always rather win by more. So I don't think I would really buy into that framing because I think it's a little disingenuous. But yeah, I mean, it showed you something about the kind of team that we have and the kind of mentality that this team has that we certainly didn't have last year. You could argue we haven't had it since like 2016, 2017. And I saw a lot of commentary about how similar this team is ending up being like the 2016 team, in that they're just strictly second half team. And I wish that would change because it's going to cost us at some point. But there's definitely a light that goes on. I mean, we are the best third quarter team in the country, and that continued while we were on the ropes. And that's another thing, like, that we just didn't know. We didn't know if we were going to fold. Now that we're on the ropes, now that we're not clearly the better team, now that we're not at Beaver Stadium, how are we going to respond out of halftime? And we responded, for a team that's a second half team, we responded probably better than we did all year after halftime.
The offense, I mean, they started out really strong and they came out of second half really strong. They came out swinging, which was really nice to see. I know it wasn't necessarily the results. I mean, the touchdown call back on because of Fleming was, touchy at best. But they came out, regardless of if they were, ended up having as much success as they'd like to. They came out with the mindset that they wanted to go down swinging, and so I appreciated that. Shawn, I just think the biggest thing to me is I don't care about the record for a second. Like, USC is a good football team, and from like an athletic standpoint and the amount of athletes Penn State saw, that's probably the most they're going to see besides Ohio State. And so to be able to tackle those guys in space enough, to be able to break enough tackles, get open enough, like that, to me, you can't undervalue that, because if you want like a barometer for like how our guys stack up to their guys, and whether that's USC or whether that's Miami or whether that's Georgia, like that to me is why this was a good barometer. You have multiple 5-star guys on that USC offense that you're trying to figure out. And honestly, the defense played really well when they did go to man coverage against some of those really good guys. 2 really good running backs. And I know they had some big moments, but did enough to contain them in order to win this football game. So a lot of those things where, like, yeah, maybe USC hasn't put it all together yet, but individually, one-on-one matchups, Penn State was able to do enough. And when you compare that to whoever, everyone else in the country, USC's athletic talent, yeah, I mean, they might not be as big up front compared to the Georgias of the world, but as far as like athletes in the skilled positions, they're just as talented as a Georgia. So really nice to see us be able to handle that amount of athleticism, because that's what you're going to have to do if you want to win a national championship.
Yeah, and the secondary impressed me probably more than any other unit on the defense, which shocks me to say. I thought the defensive line, once they settled in, they were good. I didn't really think the linebackers played that great of a game. But yeah, the secondary, they were with them. And I think you tweeted out that we could finally move past the Zion Tracy block in the back in the Illinois game. Because
he had a fantastic game.
Yeah, man, he was a dog out there, and it's hard to really tell whether or not especially a young guy like him has that dog in him, but he does. I thought Cam Miller played probably his best game, all things considered. I know AJ Harris got burnt on the slant, but overall, I thought he played well. So I would say the secondary, Jalen Reed. I was so happy for Jalen Reed to get that interception. I mean, who knows what would have happened if he didn't? But because my friends and I were like, well, what's SC gonna do here if they don't pick this up? Are they gonna try a Hail Mary? Are they gonna try a kick? I thought kicking, I think it would have been about a 60-yarder. I don't know if their kicker had that in him, but it was in play. I mean, it was a possibility. And if they picked it, I still think they needed some yards to pick up. But like if he doesn't make that play, I mean, they have a chance to win the game. And so I thought that was awesome. So yeah, I was more impressed than I thought I would be with the secondary. I just wish we did a better job with those misdirection plays in the first half. That was surprising to me that we didn't handle that better.
Well, they just used our aggressiveness against us. I mean, that's what it came down to. They weren't necessarily blocking Penn State very well up front.
Right.
But they were basically like Abdul Carter denied Dennis Sutton. These guys are heat-seeking missiles. Let's basically point that missile in the wrong direction. And they were able to use the aggressiveness of Penn State against them and really, really force Penn State's linebackers to try to tackle in space and or diagnose in space. And besides a handful of players, they really struggled with that. I didn't particularly think any of the linebackers played really well. There's obviously a difference that Kobe King wasn't out there, but I still didn't think he necessarily played great. Tony Rojas had a couple moments, but he also struggled at times, especially in space. So I think linebackers is still a problem, but it was nice to at least see how big the problem is compared to some superior or as good talent. Like you missed some tackles against Northwestern, you're like, okay, like we got to clean some things up. Can they win a football game with these linebackers against really good athletes? And they were able to find a way to get the job done with the pieces they have. Regardless of, do I think those linebackers are national championship ready? Probably not. But even given all of their weaknesses, Tom Allen was able to put together a team that was able to hold USC pretty well in the second half.
Yeah, something that's continuing with Tom Allen is being really good out of halftime, and fixing whatever they need to fix at the break. And like you said, I think playing more man coverage. I think in general, this team has played better in man than zone, even though Tom Allen, I think naturally, he prefers more zone. But yeah. And just respond. Yeah, and then think about the overtime, Corey. Moving them out of field goal, basically helping move them out of field goal range and setting them up for. I mean, it wasn't out of the kicker's range. I think he hit one from just about that distance, but that is a tough field goal to make in a situation like that. So they stepped up whenever they needed to, and a lot of times defense is your job. It's not your main job, but I mean, I guess it is putting your team in a position to win a game. And that's ultimately what they ended up doing. There were some tough moments. I thought Woody Marks, I thought we'd contain him better. We really didn't do a good job of containing him, but all things considered, yeah, he couldn't do much of anything in the second half.
No, not really. The second half, including overtime, USC ends up scoring just 10 points, outscored by Penn State 27-10 in the second half, including overtime. So,
and 3 of those points,
was
sorry
off
to
a
interrupt
pick.
you. Yeah, deep in our territory.
Yeah. Like I said, really only one good drive there. And you're right, like from a statistical perspective, like yes, technically when it's all said and done, USC ran for 189 yards. 75 of those came on one play and 28 came on another play. So literally more than half of their yards came on 2 plays, which I know you don't want to give up the explosive play, but for the most part, they were able, like, for example, not overtime, USC first or second play, second and 10, they were able to have denied Dennis Sutton dropped marks for like a 3 or 4 yard loss on that second down play. Like there was a lot of plays where they ran right up the gut and got stuffed for nothing. And they were able to, a lot of the times, get USC in 3rd and long, which they weren't even able to do against Bowling Green, but they were able to do against USC. USC was abysmal on 3rd down as well. So they were actually able, it was almost like it was either a big play for USC or they were going to punt. Like there was no like, besides I guess the one drive in the 3rd quarter, but I've already explained why that happened. That first half was like either gut punch or nothing. And there's a lot of gut punches there early. Shawn, we have a lot of fan questions, so I think we'll let that drive our show here, and we'll see where we're at. Do we have some people on YouTube? We got Mudbug in there saying it was a huge win against a good team that played its best game of the season. Robert Kaufman says Tony Rojas feet in cement bad. Kent says USC backs allowed Moss to not throw over 50 times, but that was a tough watch at some points. Makes me nervous for the Ohio game. And Daniel on X says constant theme of Tom Allen coach defenses. So let's get into some of these fan questions here. Don't want to bury the lead anymore, Shawn. We got to talk about him. Nika says, is Tyler Warren the best Penn State player since Saquon Barkley? So question is Tyler Warren the best Penn State player since Saquon Barkley? Let me just go through his stats real quick just to make sure everyone's aware of exactly what he was able to do. 17 catches. He snapped the ball. He threw the ball. And he ran the ball. So he ends up with 17 catches for 224 yards and a touchdown. 1 run for 4 yards. 1 pass for 9 yards. And a quarterback snap. I know he pass protected as well. He was targeted 20 times, Shawn. Caught 17 of them. Even in the second half, USC did not have an answer for him. Didn't really know how they should probably try to stop him. I mean, they didn't have any answer for Tyler Warren. So a monumental game. I think he tied the catches for a tight end in NCAA history. From a yardage perspective, is the most yards a tight end's ever put up in Penn State history. And now he's on national media attention. I saw all the casuals, David Pollack, everyone saying, oh, this guy's got to win the Mackey, potentially Heisman. Like, the secret's out on Tyler Warren. How do you even begin to measure his performance or understand his performance? And is he, to answer the question, the best player Penn State's had since Saquon Barkley? Maybe as impactful should be a better word.
I mean, he's up there, right? I think I do think people kind of forget how good Jahan Dotson was. And he just wasn't on a very good team. Well, he was. In 2019 he was, but when he was playing his best ball, it was in 2020 and 2021, and neither of those teams were any good. So I think Jahan is up there. But outside of him, I mean, and I include Micah Parsons in this, yeah, Warren's better. He's better than Pat Freiermuth. So he's definitely the best tight end that I've seen at Penn State. And I've been watching for not quite as long as a lot of quite a bit. And I think he's got to be in that discussion for the best guy that we've had since Saquon for sure, if not the best guy. And I think he's one of the best players in the country.
I just, it amazes me how they're able to get him the football. Andy Kotelnicki did such a great job of lining him up in different spots and not letting USC kind of box him out. It's just been incredible to watch him do what he does. And he's not the biggest guy, he's not the strongest guy, but he's just really, really good at everything he does. And yards after catch for a tight end, like I don't think I've ever seen it before. Because again, he's not super duper fast, although he is quick. He's not super duper strong, although he is really strong. And he just always drives the pile forward. He always breaks at the first tackle. That to me maybe is what separates him compared to other tight ends that Penn State's had, because they've had some really good ones now, obviously. But Tyler Warren yards after catch is very impressive. I mean, he is giving you an extra probably 5-6 yards every single time he catches the football, and USC did not have an answer for him. And I think the problem that teams are going to have with him is like, people are like, oh well, Ohio State will figure out 44, then they'll be good. But you can't really like figure him out because it's not like he always lines up on the outside. It's not like he always lines up in the slot. It's not that he always lines up, in wing formation. Like he's everywhere. And so it's not as simple as just double covering him. It doesn't necessarily work that way, especially when he's able to work from one of the inside spots. So I don't know what you do, but like this was on like Parker Washington, Ohio State performance. This was on like Jahan Dotson versus Maryland performance. Like this was just an insane game where the ball just kept going to him. USC knew it was going to go to him, and they still couldn't stop him.
How do you think he was as wide open as he was in so many plays? Like you talked about the yards after catch. Like there are some play. I know part of it's scheme, part of it's him being a great route runner. But I don't know if you're USC, how are you letting this guy just be wide open on basically half the throws he got?
Yeah, I mean, Lincoln Riley was asked about it. He said there were some blown coverages. To USC's credit, in the red zone, they did really good at keying on him. They had two massive tackles they had in space one-on-one to prevent a touchdown, which to do that once is impressive. They did it twice, and those probably saved him 8 points right there. So that was impressive. But I think it's the way Andy Kotelnicki again finds different ways to get him the football. Monster formation to running a middle screen, like you just don't see that kind of stuff. The shovel passes, the triple option wheel route, like just a lot of things that you wouldn't expect. That again is going to continue to put pressure on the defense and their roles and responsibilities. It was just incredible. It really was an incredible performance. I one guy from CBS, who was this, wrote a really good article. John Talty said Tyler Warren's historic performance wills Penn State to victory. And he literally was like, I've never seen anything like this before. I've never seen a tight end take over a game like that. Some people weren't sure you could take over the game as a tight end. Well, now it's known that yes, you can.
I didn't know if you could either. It surprised me that the offense, first off, I thought we were going to run a lot more than we did. We did try. We didn't run as well as I thought we would. But the game plan was we're going to win this with Tyler Warren. And I just did not see that coming. And obviously, Kotelnicki believes that the best way to win is to go through your best player, regardless of where he's at on the field. And definitely worked out this week. I mean, we put up 33 points, going almost not exclusively through the air, but going majority of the time through the air. Drew threw the ball 43 times against a good secondary. USC secondary was top 20 in the country coming into this game.
That was one thing I was going to mention at the top was the fact that Penn State was able to win this game in a different way, I think is important. They had Drew Allar throw the ball 43 times, and they were able to win a football game. That isn't something that typically happens with Penn State, whether it's Drew Allar or other quarterbacks. Usually, if a quarterback has to throw the ball 40 plus times for a Penn State team, they're most likely going to lose the game. And they were able to find a way to win this game. And it wasn't the typical ground and pound, play conservative, punt the ball at the 40 yard line. They were extremely aggressive from start to finish. And that wasn't just Andy Kotelnicki. That wasn't just the players. That was James Franklin going for it on a 4th and 7 and a 4th and 10 when probably, like, technically the analytics probably said to go for it, but the book probably tells you to punt it there. Like, they were aggressive. And I know, like, a lot of times Franklin says he wants to be aggressive, but sometimes his decisions don't really support that. They were completely aggressive from start to finish in everything they did. And I thought it was really impressive in that sense that they were able to win a football game in a way that they typically aren't comfortable winning a football game. At least, again, like you said, since probably 2016 or so.
And how much of that has to do with the quarterback? I think it has almost everything to do with him. And I know we're probably going to be getting into Drew a lot, but I mean, I think I don't know if it's universal that this was his best game. I certainly think it was. And he threw 3 interceptions in it. So it doesn't really sound like, it sounds counterintuitive, but this is what we were waiting to see from him. And another thing I was wrong about, I did not think we would need Drew Allar to win this game for us, and we absolutely needed Drew Allar to win this game for us, and he did.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Shawn. That's actually going to go right to our next question here. This question is from Dear Old White and Blue. Can we finally say Drew Allar is the guy we have been waiting for? Follows that up with, can we be more balanced on offense going forward? We shouldn't be so run heavy. I mean, just to make it clear, I think so, Shawn. Like, I think this was exactly what you said. This is his best game so far. I don't care about the interceptions. I'm more impressed that he threw those interceptions and was still confident throwing the football over the middle of the field. Both interceptions were him basically being lazy, where when he was coming back over to his next read, kind of his third read on the backside, he kind of just made some assumptions that it was going to be open because it has been. And USC athletically put themselves in really good positions to pick him off when he did go backside, where he'd had success in previous games. And I don't think it was any more than he was just kind of assuming that it was going to be there and it wasn't there. It's kind of how both of the picks happened. It wasn't necessarily a bad decision in the sense of typically all that has been there and he kind of just got bamboozled. But it wasn't like they were just an awful throw or something like that. And again, to have those interceptions and then to come back guns blazing all the way down the field when it matters most is a huge sign. It's something we haven't seen yet from Drew Allar. Besides the Indiana game, he didn't really have any sort of comeback win like that. And to do that on a 4th and 7 and a 4th and 10, which the one play, he literally has to move around the pocket, climb up in the pocket, pretty much break a tackle, and he throws a laser to Julian Fleming. I mean, everything you wanted to see in Drew Allar you saw in this game, from the sense of mobility and picking up a couple firsts with his legs, from moving around the pocket but still trying to be a passer first, accuracy over the middle of the field, taking shots when he has a chance to. I think he covered it all. And then again, the resiliency to not let the interceptions affect him. It was really important part. This is by far Drew Allar's best game, and you've got to feel really good about the quarterback situation for the rest of the year, knowing that he's been able to finally get over the hump, in my opinion, and prove that he has the ability, even in between the years, to be a great quarterback.
Yeah, one of the things we would hear about Drew is he doesn't get too up or too down. And I do think there are times that it seemed like he did get too down in previous games when things wouldn't go right. And you just did not see that from him. I mean, it was a 180 from what we saw when he had his 3 losses in his career. Battled back, made some mistakes, got past them, totally forgot about them. And when we needed him the most, I mean, he right up till the overtime where he kept it on the read option and centered the ball. That's a small thing, but those are the kind of things that add up to a win when you're trying to kick a field goal. So it's plays like that. And then obviously the two 4th down conversions. Also shout out Julian Fleming. Told y'all the big catch would come. It did. And climbing the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield, and throwing, like you said, a dart across his own body. I mean, not an easy throw to make, and he made it look easy. And yeah, that's something that we hadn't seen from a Penn State quarterback probably since Kerry Collins, as far as just pure talent goes, and merging that talent with merging that talent with meeting the moment. And that's what you saw yesterday from him.
The whole, off season, I just reiterated that, like, Penn State was winning games despite Drew Allar, not because of Drew Allar. And that has changed now. Like, they are winning games because of Drew Allar. I can't express how important that distinction is. To go out there, and if they would have just tried to run the rock and play keep away, they probably would have lost this game easily. They put the ball in Drew's hands and they said, go win us a football game, and they were able to get the job done. To me, that's a huge moment for this Penn State football team. The confidence that you can get out of that, going on the road to Wisconsin, even playing the Buckeyes at home, having the confidence to say, yes, we have a quarterback that we think can go win us any football game, is not something they had last year. It's just not. And it's going to completely change the complexion of this football team moving forward, because to the next point that we had there on the question of, can we be a more balanced offense? Well, I think the answer is yes, you can be. Now, I don't think it's going to be much different than what you saw in that first drive of the game, where they're going to be, misdirection, dink and dunking here, taking a shot here. That's probably what they're going to be. USC played a lot of cover 2 or 2 high safeties at least, to prevent a lot of that. But I absolutely think you can throw the ball more, because we've seen now Drew Allar has the confidence to throw the football ball over the middle of the field, and he has the ability to lead you back.
Yeah, I think it's in Kotelnicki's DNA to run the ball. But he showed that he's going to do whatever he has to go win a game. And I do wonder how much of it was we had a plan to go and throw the ball a ton. Well, not a lot more than we expected. I don't know if that was just the way the game went or if that was our plan all along. But either way, we showed we could do it. So it really doesn't matter. So, yeah, really, really cool thing to see.
Mudbug says, I thought it was a great performance by Drew, showed a ton of resilience and was clutch when we needed him to be. He's a leader of this team. It's clear. I also love the post-game comments he had. You could tell how much this meant to him and the team, and how bad they wanted to win for each other and Coach Franklin. Again, you can chat with us on YouTube. If you haven't already, please make sure to like the video and subscribe if you're hanging out on YouTube. Appreciate you guys being here. Let's go to another question. This one's about Tyler Warren, because we kind of had a couple questions about it, but Brendan Malinovich summed it up the best here. His question basically was, Singleton looked like he was on a pitch count today, and he took a big shot in his shoulder early in the third and disappeared to the last drive. Feelings on the offensive line, run lanes are clogged a lot of the game. So I guess I do think maybe Nick Singleton wasn't 100%. He looked really good early as far as picking up a first down literally on his first play from scrimmage, and he's done that a lot on 1st and 10s. Katron Allen definitely played a little bit more than I thought he was going to play, but I think that was maybe because Singleton wasn't 100%. But Katron Allen also picked up some really big third downs on some bone-crushing the gut. When you really needed to have him, you could count on Katron Allen to do that for you. I think it's something worth monitoring. I think, he has a whole nother week now to get healthy, so not too worried about it long term for Singleton. And then as far as the O line goes, I thought, especially in pass protection, they took a step in the right direction. I know USC's not a premier pass rushing team. They've actually struggled with it to a certain degree. But even at the end of that game, on a 4th and 10 and a 4th and 7, when they're going to throw the football, it is not easy to protect the quarterback in those situations. And they were able to do just enough of that. Again, Allar did some things with his legs to help them out a little bit. But the offensive line, in my opinion, did really well in pass protection. And you can't come back from being down 14 points if your offensive line doesn't do some good things for you. It could have went from bad to ugly real quick if they'd kind of just thrown in the towel. Last thing I'll just mention, Anthony Duncan did play, was back. That was also good to see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what's happening with Singleton, but probably dealing with he is dealing with something, obviously.
Dealing with the
So
bumps and bruises.
yeah, and thankfully we have another bye week here, so he'll be able to get past that. And yeah, I mean, Kaytron did what Kaytron does, and it kept us afloat. There times, I think there are a couple, seems to be a couple plays a game where Kaytron has the ball, and you go, oh, if that was Singleton, that's a 20-yard gain, where Kaytron will get an 8-yard gain. So there's a couple of those every game, but still, you'll take Kaytron. I'll take Kaytron every day of the week. He is at his best when Singleton is able to complement him. But yeah, I think he'll be all right, especially with the bye week. I'd be more concerned about him if we had to go to Madison on Saturday, but we do not. So and yeah, I thought the offensive line did a good job. I mean, I only remember Drew getting hit a handful of times. One of them was the roughing the passer, and really, I think Drew might have taken some acting lessons out in LA when he was there, because that might have been the softest roughing the passer I've ever seen in my life. But
There
we
you
will
go.
take
I
it.
don't know if you could have heard Gene. I don't know if you heard Gene because you're in a bar, so I don't know if you had audio or not.
I couldn't. We had the pick game
Yeah.
audio on.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah,
Gene specifically said if any part of the lower leg is touched, it's a penalty. So there
yeah.
you go.
I think they touched his cleat.
Yeah.
But still, you got to sell it, and Drew was able to do that. But really, I don't remember him getting hit a whole lot. So
No,
I
zero
thought the
sacks,
offensive
by
line
the
was
way.
very, very good in pass pro. Like and like you said, I mean, could they have opened up some more if I could speak, more run lanes? Of course. But I also think if we had 100% healthy or even a 90% healthy Nick Singleton, he has a way of, when there's a little bit of holes, when the hole is only cracked a little bit, to be able to burst through there and pick up 10 to 20 or more yards.
Yeah, again, did not allow a sack against USC, allowed a single TFL. Stayed on schedule when they needed to, which I think was the most important part. Trying to think, Shawn, did Penn State have any 3-and-outs? I feel like it was either points or interceptions. You know,
Um,
I'll look that up real quick
I don't think we did.
So we went field goal, punt, but the punt was not a 3-and-out. Okay, we did have one 3-and-out. Yeah, we did have one 3-and-out, 4 plays, 17 yards, 17-3. They punted it, and then the defense immediately got a 3-and-out right back there in the second quarter. So looks like just one 3-and-out in this football game. Not too bad.
No.
Let's go to another question here. John Getz on YouTube says Penn State was over pursuing the last 2 weeks. Got to stay more gap discipline. Yeah, and then he also mentions the holding on Abdul Carter, which was pretty egregious. I mean, that one that you tweeted about, I mean, that was such a blatant hold on Jalen Reed. That was just terrible.
I jumped up in the air at the bar and just yelled hold. I think the Pitt fans thought I went insane.
So we mentioned it a little bit already, but Dorito Bandit specifically asks, did Zion Tracy redeem himself? Made a few key defensive plays down the stretch. I think Zion Tracy, low key, I think Sean Fitz even said this on the Blue and White Illustrated post game. Like low key player of the game on defense. Like probably wouldn't go to him, but kind of in a way. Like he played really well and had some really hard matchups. USC literally has 3 or 4 wide receivers that, like, just to be honest, like Penn State would love to have. Let's just be frank. They did a really good job covering them. There was multiple times where like Miller Moss just back shoulder wasn't there, and they kept throwing it anyway. So I thought Zion Tracy did some good things in the run support as well, but they left him on islands, and he was up to the task, and also did not have any mess ups in the punt return game. So all in all, I think Zion Tracy played his butt off.
He did. Definitely redeemed himself, and that's again, big moment. You're at the Coliseum. You're trailing most of the game. I mean, we had a lead very early, and then we didn't lead again until we won. So playing from behind and playing against some really, really superior athletes and just being a dog. And yeah, I think he was Mr. Dependable and very well may have been the player of the game on defense.
All right, let's go to another question here. This one's on AJ Harris. Jason says AJ Harris hasn't given up a passing touchdown until this game. I know he made some great open field tackles. Overall, how would you rate his play versus USC? Yeah, I mean, I don't on the turnover or on a touchdown he gave up. I'm gonna have to look at it again. It looked like he had outside leverage on purpose, which would scream to me he was expecting some sort of support on the inside by some sort of robber. I don't exactly know why nobody was there. It seemed like he was expecting to have some help and he didn't have it. It was a really easy play for him. But otherwise, again, like you look at these USC receivers, like they didn't go crazy. Mekhi Lemon, 6 catches for 73 yards, but the rest of them, like nothing bad. Like their second leading receiver was a running back in Woody Marks, which we knew he was going to get his in the receiving game. Kyron Hudson, who's a really good receiver, did have the touchdown, but otherwise 4 catches, 36 yards. Deuce Robinson, 1 catch, 25 yards. Jacoby Lane, 2 catches, 18 yards. Zachariah Branch, the 5-star wide receiver, 2 catches, 6 yards. So like they did an exceptional job on this USC pass defense or passing attack with their pass defense.
Yeah. I mean, the secondary more than held their own. And as far as Harris goes, again, I thought he was still pretty good. I mean, I know he gave up a touchdown. Like you said, sometimes when you just watch it even once or sometimes even twice, it's hard to really know whose job was whose. And AJ Harris doesn't give up touchdowns except there. It was the first one he ever gave. First one he's given up. So yeah, I mean, I think he's been as good as advertised so far this year. And I don't really feel any different after the USC game than I did going into it about him. You're muted.
Thanks. One more question here. This is from Randy Seeley. He says, Cory said last week's game was one of the most boring games he'd ever watched. How did this compare? Which one do you prefer? Great question, Randy. Yeah, I'm going to say that this game was a little bit more interesting. I'm going to say that it was a little bit more fun. And I guess I'd rather prefer the blowouts, right? And the easy ones that don't take a couple days or years or months off of your life. But I'll just go back to it. It was fun in the sense of Penn State climbing back into this, crawling back into this, and actually finishing the job. I mean, it seems silly, But we had seen that same song and dance many, many times. Being down, starting slow, being down, and then they kind of play decent in the second half, and they make it somewhat interesting. Not enough where you can turn the TV off interesting, but you never really thought they're going to come back and win it. And yet in this game, they were able to, and they made it a game, and they kept fighting. And even when USC counterpunch, they were able to get back down and score again. And a lot of people had to assume when USC put it in the end zone, that was a nail in the coffin. And this offense just refused to quit, and they answered. It was fun. Football's fun to watch when that's happening. And it was really nice to be, again, on the other side and get to see that ball finally go through the hoop. I mentioned this on the show before in the preview show. We just got to, when it comes to these big games against good teams, we're not shooting 3-pointers anymore. We are at the free throw line, and we're just trying to see the ball go through the net. We're just trying to just see us get one. And they're able to do that. And I had a great time watching this one. It was a fun game. It was painful, obviously, at times. But it was really, really warming to see us pull one out, Shawn.
It was retroactively fun to watch, to me. Because when you're in it, well, I wasn't in anything, but when you're watching it, yeah, you're nervous every moment of it. So it's hard for me at least to really enjoy it live. But then, field goal goes through and I'm with my friends, I'm celebrating, I'm running around. I mean, yeah, like that's it was great when we won. I mean, it's definitely a cathartic experience with that. But which one would I rather? Well, I'd rather just win every game by multiple scores, of course. That would be way better for my mental sanity. But retroactively and really for the team, it's better to win. It's better for the team going forward to be tested like that against a talented team, because we're going to have other tests, and Ohio State and beyond. And I think it's a little early to start talking about playoffs, but I think there's a better chance better chance than not we go 11-1, and that will get us in the playoff.
Yeah, and for those that have been living under a rock, Ohio State lost to Oregon last night, so they will not be coming in to Happy Valley undefeated. Really, really good game there last night in Eugene. Penn State up to number 3 in the AP poll. Texas won, Oregon 2, I believe.
Texas won, Oregon 2, yeah.
And then we got Ohio State's 4 and Georgia's 5, I think, right?
In the AP, and then the coaches, it's flopped. It's
okay.
Flopped. It's flipped. Georgia's 4.
That's about all the time I want to spend on the AP right there. But wanted to show you, Shawn.
When does the first playoff poll come out? Before the Ohio State game or after?
Oh, it's right around there, I'm pretty sure.
I know it's either that Tuesday prior or the Tuesday after. I don't remember which one.
Let me tell you.
Probably be the Tuesday before. I know the Tuesday after is Election Day, so I don't know if they want to do their big reveal on Election Day.
I'm looking.
Yeah, because it would be cool if, we knew where we were going in.
October 31st, it looks like.
Spooky. So, yeah, that would be before the Ohio State game.
Is that Tuesday? Is that a Tuesday?
It's usually on a Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't know. The 31st is a Thursday, so maybe that was last year's.
Oh, they must have changed that this year.
Well, I might not be looking at the right thing, but I think it is going to be right around the end of the October. So
yeah, last week of October. Yeah, I didn't know how they did that. But yeah, so we'll know where we are in the first ranking that matters going into the game. Also, they're doing it on election night.
Yep.
Interesting. Talk about
first rankings November 5th. There you have it. Shawn, I wanted to just go through. I think I have 2 plays here for Film Room today. Nothing crazy. Since we kind of have the time. All right. So let me just back this up here. So this is first quarter, 8 minutes to go. First drive for Penn State still. They'd already held the ball for 4 minutes and 30 seconds, 5 rushes, 3 passes. Doing a great job keeping USC on their heels. Really had no idea. USC defenders had no idea what was coming next. They start this off by being in a monster formation. So they got 2 offensive linemen split out as wide receivers. They're ineligible. They're just all the way out there. Then they motion Nick Singleton back in when this play starts here. Notice, though, Ty Warren still an eligible receiver, kind of in his normal wingback position here. And there's so many things you can do from this. Obviously, when you bring Singleton in motion, all the natural flow, the linebackers are going to go towards their right, our left, to the top of the screen, and watch them all sink in over there. And then they just run, and they do have a little screen out there. I think Clifford, he could throw to Clifford if he wants to, but he's going all the way to Tyler Warren here. And it's just a simple little middle screen. But again, to me, it's more about how you are designing the play or how you are setting up the play. Everyone in the country runs middle screens, but running a middle screen out of a monster formation is just different. And it's just a good example of how Penn State's finding different ways to get Tyler Warren the football. And he catches this football and then absolutely destroys that one USC defender. I mean, that's just vicious. One other thing I just wanted to mention right here. Offensive linemen are blocking downfield. However, he catches this ball behind the line of scrimmage. Really important part of this. It could have otherwise been a legal man downfield. He catches it behind the line of scrimmage. None of that matters. Little things, but those are the things that usually bites Penn State in the butt. They did it right on this play.
Yeah, Dairy Queen Blizzard, right? Like you said, middle screen, you see this all the time in college football. But a lot of it is just disguising it. USC doesn't really know. And this was really the whole first drive up until we get inside the 5 before the offensive pass interference. This was what we did. I mean, they were on roller skates the whole way down the field at a drive that started on R10. And it was just things like that. And here's the other play that we totally get them on.
Yeah. I was just because it kind of ties into it well, so might as well go through this one too. I mean, this is such a great play. Again, USC is at home. You know, they've heard all week about not getting much rush on the passer. They've heard all week that Penn State's going to try to run it all over them. They come in all fired up. So what do? You use their own momentum against them. I thought Lincoln Riley did this really well against us too. And just run a little throwback screen to Tyler Warren here. I mean, also, LSU and a lot of other teams have been rolling out the passer against USC quite a bit. So this is something USC's probably seen a lot. And so, again, to use that against them was just fantastic. And, again, getting your best player in space. I mean, we just talked about Tyler Warren, how good he is yards after catch. This is a great example of giving him the football and giving him a chance, I wish, to score. And then to reiterate one more time, he's behind the line of scrimmage. Guys are downfield blocking. You just felt early on that AK was just dealing from his bag. I mean, it was really fun to watch. And there's plenty of more plays. Everyone's going to talk about the Tyler Warren touchdown where he lines up at center and he snaps it, and that was awesome and cool. But there's a lot of hidden gems in this game that I was really impressed with the play calling.
Yeah, this was, again, just awesome play. We totally fooled them. I mean, some misdirection from us. I know we talked about Lincoln Riley using that. I mean, but this shows you Andy Kotelnicki's from that school as well. And if it wasn't for, I mean, 91 on USC here does a great job just hustling down the field and catching up with Tyler Warren. If it wasn't for that, I mean, this is a touchdown. And unfortunately,
you're right. That's a great point. Look at 91. He does hustles, but
Yeah, I mean that's a great hustle play on his part. But yeah, I mean, just getting the ball, Tyler Warren again, open space, letting your guys go. That's really what you want from an OC, and that's what you see here. Also, Donka blocking downfield as well. Um, also, what a great uniform matchup we had.
It was so pretty, wasn't it?
I know, like USC, such classic uniforms. Ours, sunny day.
Can't ask for much more.
Yeah, I know.
I'll go one more here, and it's kind of like technically the last drive. Showed this on Twitter earlier. I'll just stop it right here. So here's a 4th and 7 play. Drew Allar ends up converting this one to Julian Fleming. Very good pass protection here. Again, 4th and 7. You know the blitz is coming. You know the defense knows that you're gonna have to throw the football. Great pocket for Drew Allar, and he absolutely stings it to Julian Fleming here. This catch was an insanely hard catch. Like he reaches back in time to catch that football. Really impressed with this catch by Julian Fleming. And then literally just moments after that on 4th and 10, if I can get back to that play. Again, blitz coming. This time Drew Allar does a fantastic, it could have probably been a better block by Nick Singleton. Does a fantastic job avoiding that guy, stepping up, knows the clock's run out, needs to get rid of it, and he's able to find his man. So just really impressed with his ability to climb the pocket there, avoid the sack, throw a catchable ball for Julian Fleming, and Fleming's able to come down with it. Just awesome for Julian Fleming, but by far the best drive we saw from Drew Allar. And then he finishes it off. One thing I'll say about this play, the interception, the first interception that Drew Allar had, he tried to force it over the middle of the field. Ready? Right here, he would have thrown a pick right now over the middle of the field. And when he threw that first pick, Tyler Warren was wide open in the flat because USC was sinking so much, willing to give up things in the flat. Allar forced it on the first interception. This time, he doesn't fall for it, and he drops it out in the flat for an easy touchdown. The reason that was so wide open is because USC was so confident that they were going to probably pick off Allar again. And this time he learned from his mistakes. Really great sign of maturation there that he was able to recover from that and make a good play.
Yeah, a little too much thinking there, I think. Because again, if you're USC, how do you leave Nick Singleton without anybody within 20 yards of him? I just don't understand that. But again, Drew being patient, not trying to force things. That's what you want to see. Like you said, that's what you want to see from your quarterback, taking what the defense is giving you. And you see so many. I mean, if you watch the NFL Sunday night game tonight, you will probably see a quarterback trying to force things when there's things open underneath. And Drew doesn't do that here. And that's something he's really always done a good job at. The problem with him was not forcing things enough, but being able to do both of those things, being able to know when you gotta uncork it, and being willing to still be patient when the time comes for that as well. I mean, that's growth.
That's all you can ask for. That's all you can ask for. I think it's going to take me some time to get over this one. Again, I understand that USC is not ranked and they're now 3-3, but it was just such a big game, I think, for Penn State. I mean, maybe when we look back on it, it's like the Minnesota 2016 game. I'm not really sure. But just from a belief factor to go get one, again, to see the ball go through the hoop is big for this team, in my opinion. I mean, it wasn't just a big win on the road that they had to get over. It was, can Drew Allar lead them from behind and have meaningful contributions late in the game to win a football game that's in doubt? Yes. Were you able to do other things besides just run Nick Singleton and Katron Allen and win a football game? Yes. Was the defense able to withstand a really good offense? Yes. a lot of great things coming out of this for Penn State. And also really probably good that Penn State has a bye as well.
Yeah, like you said, checked off a lot of boxes that we really. And I tweeted this early that we're about to see what this team's made of. Somebody had a funny reply. They said it's made out of Tyler Warrens. um, but really, I mean, you don't know until you're in that spot how you're going to respond. And every team is different year to year. Every team. Players change, players come and go, new leaders emerge. Um, and that's always how it is, especially in college. NFL is a little bit different, but college, it's you get so many new players each year, and who's going to step up when you need them? I feel like weirdly we didn't talk enough today about Ryan Barker.
Yeah, I was literally about to go there if you hadn't, so I'm glad you did.
There we go. Yeah, I mean this guy, walk on, redshirt freshman, and was kind of the forgotten man a little bit in that kicker battle. And he ends up being the guy we go with after Sahadek struggles. Sahadek did not make the trip. Make of that what you will. Chase Meyer was the backup kicker. But Ryan Barker.
I didn't know that. That's good to know.
Yep. Ryan Barker nails 4 field goals. He's perfect on his extra points. And they were all no doubter extra points as well. And I had seen a quote during the week from him about how he thrives under pressure. And that did cross my mind when I saw him line up to kick the game winner. And I was kind of thinking, well, we're about to see if this kid's full of shit or not. And he was not. I mean, just drilling that kick. And he said something along the lines of he was happy when they iced him because he was able to line it up before he kicked. They ice him, and then he's all ready to go by the time he walks back out on the field. And that's the kind of mentality I want my kicker, that's just a killer and wants that moment.
Cerebral.
So, what's that?
You want him to be cerebral?
Yes, cerebral. So, yeah, I mean, can't say enough good things about that kid. So happy for him.
Yeah, my favorite part was like, what were you thinking before the kick? And he goes like, how I'm going to celebrate. Like that is,
yeah, that's what I want.
That's like ice in my veins. Awesome material right there.
Yes. And again, he's not BSing you, because he went out and did it. And his kicks early in the game, I mean, we had 2 drives stall out. He really kept us in it. Imagine if we're down 20-0 going into halftime. You feel a whole different kind of way than 20-6. So those were still big kicks. They were early, but they still kept us in it.
No doubt about it. I mean, Penn State, I think, got very lucky when you think about this in the grand scheme of things, that they were able to find a kicker mid-year. No idea how this game shapes out if they don't have the ability to kick 4 field goals in this one. So even the field goals, and this is maybe a good transition to what I wanted to talk about next before we get out of here. Even the field goal later in the game, when I almost wanted them to go for it, and they ended up settling and kicking the field goal to tie the game at 23-23. I think Franklin even deserves credit for that, because I wanted him to go for it, and they had the momentum, and it was a smart decision in hindsight to kick the field goal, but that's a tough decision to make when you're all the way down there and you're frustrated because you've been stopped in the red zone a couple times already. To not let your emotions get the best of you and just settle down, like, hey, let's tie it up. Let's trust our defense, who's been playing really good in the second half, which they ended up not doing well in that next drive anyway. But I think that just was really good patience from Franklin. And I just want to wrap up by saying this may have been James Franklin's best coached game as far as big game goes. Now, I will say this and preface all of it by saying I also think Lincoln Riley did not coach very well. Whether that was the way they called the plays after the interceptions, whether that was basically sitting on the ball right before half, or if it was the way they kind of sat in the ball and then the regulation, they had a lot of opportunities potentially to win this game. And they didn't, partially because of Penn State's defense, but I also think Lincoln Riley kind of tied one hand behind their back there for a little bit. And it was nice, Shawn, for once, for us to be on the other side of that, where our guy is the more aggressive guy, or our guy is making the right decisions, and it's their guy who maybe isn't putting his players in the best position to win a football game.
Yeah, it was very Mike McDaniel-like from Lincoln Riley. I felt like I was watching a Dolphins game in reverse. And honestly, they're very similar coaches in that way, in that they're great play designers, but play calling, not what they're cracked up to be, and managing the game. But yeah, Franklin. Let's put it this way: if we lose yesterday, the sports media is gonna skewer James Franklin. Like, it's gonna be merciless. So just things like knowing when to be aggressive and when not to be. Like, on the last drive, full disclosure, I wanted to punt on 4th and 7. I was like, punt. We have a good punter. Pin them. We're gonna have it. We'll hold them. We're gonna get the ball back with about 2 minutes to go win the game, or go tie the game. And if we don't get it, they're 10 yards away from field goal range, and they're going to kick the ball. They're going to kick, and we're going to lose. So it was a huge, putting your balls on the table moment, and it worked out. And then on the 4th and 10, I knew we were going to go for it. It would have made no sense to go for it on 4th and 7, and then punt on 4th and 10. That one I did agree with, because I was like, well, you're here, you better go for it now. So stuff like that, knowing when to be aggressive and when not to be, that shows a lot of feel. And I know Franklin gets critiqued over the years, sometimes fairly, for not managing games the way we'd want, and he's definitely had some moments of that. But I do think in the last year especially, he's been better with that. I thought he managed just different time management things he's gotten better with. So yeah, big win for him personally, on an individual basis. And yeah, it sets up for what's going to be a pretty exciting end of the year. You're muted.
Even just the way they manage the end of the game there, where like you can't really call your timeouts too early and you want them to call timeouts. Like, you could have easily given USC more time, right? Or put yourself in a position where Miller Moss doesn't overthrow that. Just small things like that. I think they did a really good job with how they did it. Wouldn't have liked to seen maybe a different Hail Mary option there at the end, instead of throwing it really short and risking a return for a touchdown. But this is the first game where he didn't have the best 2-for-1 at the end of the half. But he's done really well in that department as well lately. I think Mudbug sums it up well here. When you have a coach that goes to war for his players and vice versa, that's a dangerous team. That's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, definitely.
Penn State's going on a bye. They play Wisconsin 2 weeks from now. On any final thoughts before we wrap up this first episode here, post USC?
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty awesome, right? And you wanted to see us win a game like that, because we were saying in our group chat, when's the last time we came from behind late? And he brought up the Indiana game. Actually, I think I try to forget that game, but the last time on the road we did it was against Purdue, and we were only down a few points in that game. We weren't down a whole lot. But the last time we came back from 2 touchdowns down, I mean, it hasn't happened a whole lot. And part of it is, in college, even more so than the pros, there are just so many more blowouts. And there's so many games that you're going to win by multiple scores. But it's these games, there's only a few of them. If you're a good team, if you're a top-notch team every year, there's only a few of them that you have to play. But you want to come out on the winning side of more than half. And there have been a lot. There's been a lot of disappointment in these past few years with that. I mean, even going back to the beginning of Franklin's tenure, it struck me how similar the Rose Bowl game and this game were, the USC Rose Bowl and this game were, except we just came out on top. So to be able to see it, I think the theme of this episode has been the ball going through the hoop. That was another ball we needed to see go through the hoop to win a gutsy game like this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We will not have a show on Wednesday. Shawn, you and I need to talk about what we want to do for this week and next. But no show this Wednesday for a fact. Follow us on Twitter, Hardcore PSUFB, for the latest there. But we'll be back at some point. Enjoy your second bye week for those that celebrate. Thank you to everyone on YouTube that was hanging out with us. Mudbug, Kent, John. Appreciate all you guys hanging out in the chat today on YouTube. If you haven't already, please make sure to like the video and subscribe on YouTube, or subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast version of the show. And we shall be back. Until then, where are you? Over here. That right here is Shawn Kane. I'm Cory Lestochi. You've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. See y'all.
Good night.